Welcome back to week 4 of the journey. My name is CJ. So far, we've learned that God has this unique vision for our life and that core values shape our priorities. And then last week, we learned that spiritual gifts help prepare us to live for God. I hope you've enjoyed our past few weeks together or our past experiences. I mean, we've been out on the ocean, stomping through the Everglades, a road trip to the beach. I mean, it's been like a reality television show. It's been a race on land, sea, and yeah, air. That's right, this week we're going flying. How cool, right? Before I was a youth speaker, I was an airline captain. And while we may not be cruising around my old jet, the preparation for the smaller Cessna we're skydiving from today is very similar. And it all begins with the pilot. As a pilot, I have a logbook, and in it is a record of how many hours I have flown and the types of aircraft. I can see that in October of 1997, at 14, I took my first flight lesson. And man, was I hooked. I convinced my parents 2 years later to allow me to start full-time flight training. And in September of 1999, when I was only 16, I soloed. That's right, I got to fly by myself. I mean, while my friends are out learning to drive cars, I'm up playing in the sky. Most of my flight training was in this Cessna 172. It was a good aircraft, even though it looks kind of small and only has 4 seats. But as I continued to build pilot experience, it was only a matter of time before I was flying those larger commercial aircraft. Much like my past is written in a pilot logbook, the same is true for each aircraft, except it's stuff like the inspections and maintenance procedures. A pilot or mechanic can review this and make sure the aircraft is safe to fly. You'd be surprised what you can learn from the aircraft's history if you know what to look for. Another thing pilots check is called the weather forecast. Basically, really smart people can look at past weather patterns and predict the future weather at an airport. It's pretty cool stuff and really helps pilots have safe flights. It's crazy how much stuff pilots have to check before they even walk out to the aircraft. But all that stuff, even though it's in the past, is all important and helps pilots have a safe flight in the future. Once all that's done, it's finally time to walk around the airplane and make sure there's not any damage or missing parts. Why don't you follow me? Come on. This aircraft's definitely been around a while. Just a few dents and dings and some minor repairs, but it's definitely safe to fly. I can tell this aircraft has a story. You know, just like I inspect this aircraft, you can inspect your past, or what I like to call past experiences. And while I may not have logged them in a book, well, possibly Facebook, it doesn't make them any less important in shaping who you are becoming. Think about it, like my logbook tells my story and the aircraft's logbook tells its story, your past experiences tells yours. Let me catch you guys up if you're just joining us or if you've slept since last week and have forgotten what's going on with Joseph. So Jacob's favorite son, Joseph, was almost killed by his envious brothers, but instead sold into slavery, right? I wonder if my sister ever thought about selling me at a garage sale. Anyway, not important. What is important is that our bro Joseph found himself serving Potiphar, the Egyptian officer. That is, until some funny business happened and he was tossed into jail unjustly. Long story short, Joseph met Pharaoh's waiter and chief baker in prison. When they both had crazy dreams, he hooked them up with their meaning. This proved useful. You see, the waiter was released long before Joseph, and when Pharaoh experienced wild dreams of his own, the waiter remembered Joseph and his gift to understand dreams. Finally, he was released from prison and called upon to interpret Pharaoh's dreams. The important part to remember is that the dreams weren't of 7 good years, but then 7 bad years. Pharaoh was so impressed with Joseph and his plan to get Egypt through the bad years that Pharaoh put him in charge of all the land. He went from slavery to ruling Egypt. He's the number 2 guy. It was all in God's plan. It was only a matter of time before Joseph's core values, spiritual gifts, and past experiences are bound to collide.
Yeah, how was Georgia? It was great. You know, the whitewater rafting was crazy.
You didn't mind getting in that cold water, huh?
No, I jumped in. He said
great.
we can go swimming. I said, okay.
And why do you, like, what is it about you that says, you know what, I'm gonna jump in, it's 48-degree temperature water, why would you wanna jump into that?
The experience, I guess. I can say I did.
Like, what are you pursuing right now?
Police academy, sheriff's office.
Nice, man. What made you get interested in all that stuff?
My dad mainly was one of the big things, my stepdaddy, and then doing good is another. I like helping people, and I hate people who take advantage of others, so it all sort of ties in.
How much do you think like of your past plays into your decisions, like where you're headed for now?
I think everything in my past has helped push towards the decision now.
I both like the good and the bad, probably.
Good
huh?
and bad, everything. Just people I've hung out with, people I didn't hang out with.
Like most people just kind of like breeze through life. They have these past experiences. Things happen, come and go, good and bad, but they don't really stop to think about the implications and their growth. Like there's some times like you sit down and like work with people and like process through those events so you can actually learn from them.
Yeah, I've talked to a few people and figure out things that either could have been done better and then learn from and build off of it and continue with life.
And so you mentioned like the police academy. I know you've talked about getting to do like ride-alongs and stuff with the police department. Like what are you learning from the ride-alongs? Like why do you want to be part of the ride-alongs?
I get to learn different ways of how different cops act, how their ways of keeping themselves safe, let alone the safety of others. And it actually helped me determine where in the sheriff's office I want to get to.
So these basic experiences are definitely helping put you ahead of maybe like competition or other guys who are in the same position as you, huh?
Maybe not put me ahead in the competition-wise, but I'll have a head on how to react in other situations when I'm working.
So it kind of give me the edge then, basically.
Yeah.
Okay, so last time we checked in with Joseph, we were about to see how his core values, spiritual gifts, and past experiences were beginning to come together and shape his unique vision. We found out that there would be 7 good years, then 7 bad ones. Since Joseph was now in charge, he had the people of Egypt store a lot of food during the 7 good years. After those 7 years passed, sure enough, bring on those bad years. Now the story takes a turn. Joseph's father, Jacob, in need of food, sends his sons, the evil brothers, to Egypt. When they arrive and Joseph reveals himself to them, they must have started sweating. I mean, what would he do to them? But Joseph is a man of God and tells them not to worry. For what they intended for harm, God intended for good. Now don't miss this. Even though Joseph didn't always know what was going on, he trusted the Lord. And in the end, Joseph was the one who saved not only Egypt, but his own family, including the very ones who tried to get rid of him. God really did give Joseph a vision, and it came true. Even the part where his brothers would bow before him in everything. Crazy stuff, but a great example of how God uses everything in our past for his plan. We just have to be willing, like Joseph. And we're talking a lot about being all in this month as far as living our unique vision. When you hear someone say being all in, what does that mean to you?
150%. Played a lot of sports when I was younger. Played until freshman year in high school. And it's one of those things you have to go 100% if you actually want to play on the team. And my biggest year, I guess, was freshman year soccer. I was on the varsity team. Didn't play until 2 games. But I feel the reason I played those 2 games was because I gave my 150% in the practices, and it worked out because I finally got to play.
And as you're working towards your law enforcement career, what is all in going to look like for you as you pursue that goal?
Right now, all in's going to be college. Devoting everything I can, all the time possible to college. Less Xbox, more studying. It's very disappointing, but
yes.
It has to be done.
Austin mentioned being all in. It was no doubt that Joseph was all in too. I mean, his past experiences were preparing him to rule Egypt, just like Austin's past experiences are preparing him to become a police officer. I mean, they were both all in, but in different ways. And what I don't want you to miss is that your past experiences are shaping a vision that fits you perfectly too. Like I said, these past 4 weeks have been like a race. Except oddly enough, I'm not racing anyone. May sound strange, but check out what Paul says in 1 Corinthians 9:24. Don't you realize that in a race, everyone runs, but only one person gets the prize? So run to win. What Paul goes on to say is, basically our prize is eternal, which is to say God. We need to run after God. So I knew what I had to do. I had to dive in. I had to go all in. For me, all in meant leaving my career as a pilot, which was hard to think about, all that school and training. But it was clear. My core values, spiritual gifts, and past experiences prepared me to follow God's unique vision for my life. I hope the picture is beginning to become clear for you, and that you realize God's calling for your life is unique and starts today. Even in the small things like doing your homework, cleaning your room, and yes, obeying your parents. It all counts, so run with purpose and allow God to equip you to be who He wants you to become. Like I said, I knew what I had to do, no matter how hard the decision was going to be. I had to go all in. Will you?